Hey everybody, my goal today is to give you a really quick clownfish overview guide that'll take no time at all to get you started in the saltwater aquarium hobby. Clownfish are an awesome choice for a first fish. They're really hardy, very beautiful, and they're very popular, so there's a lot of information out there if you run into any trouble. So to setting up your tank, an ideal tank size for a clown is actually fairly small. You can start with just a 10-gallon and go up from there depending on what other fish you want to have. Water quality, all those things are really important, and having good filtration is also important, but you can have a small tank with these fish. When creating an environment for clownfish, it's really important to have a lot of good hiding places, a lot of good rock, a lot of good features for them to interact with. And that means usually if you're just having fish in a tank, it can just be rock and sand. If you want to have an anemone with your clownfish, things get a little bit more complicated, and that means you need to have the correct lighting, a lot of good filtration, good bacteria, good healthy feeding. It gets a lot more complicated. But when you're feeding your clownfish, you're also feeding your anemone. When you're feeding your clownfish, they're carnivorous, meaning they're going to eat really, really small different fish and shrimp and things like that. So you can feed them frozen shrimp. This is very common. They'll also take flakes and pellet food. I really recommend that you just feed once a day. It's really easy to overfeed these fish. Remember that they're going to eat as much as they can whenever you feed them. So you can feed them, a little bit less than probably what you are thinking of. More feedings throughout the day, more smaller feedings is better. Now, they're going to be very fun to watch. Clownfish like to swim around. They're very interactive. They like to look around constantly, especially if they have an anemone. And something that's really important is they actually are very territorial. Clownfish tend to be very protective of wherever they are currently staying. So if they have one side of the tank that they really love, they're going to protect it with some ferocity. People have experienced bites of their clownfish. They can get pretty aggressive. Now, the bites hurt, but they're not going to really, truly injure you. When it comes to their tank mates, there's a wide variety of fish that you can put in there. Clownfish are known to be very reef safe, meaning they're not going to attack corals or anything like that. And they're very, very good with that sort of thing. But that being said, they can get really territorial, especially certain breeds of clownfish that are the red breeds are known to be very aggressive, very defensive of their territory, and some fish just can't handle it. So if you're planning to get a more aggressive type of clownfish, then you should plan for that and add them in last. Clownfish are often bred in captivity these days, meaning that they're in a fish tank and they have babies and are grown there, which is fairly rare for saltwater fish, but it's getting more and more popular. So most of the clownfish we have these days are captive bred, which is great because that means that it's very sustainable. They're not being shipped from wherever. They are grown and have lived in an aquarium their entire life, and that means they're going to be more suitable for that environment in the future, making them really hardy. So in conclusion, just a couple of things to review. Feeding every day. Small tank is fine for just a pair of clownfish, 10 gallons minimum, and that's pretty much anything in the saltwater hobby unless you're just doing shrimp and corals and whatnot. But if you want clownfish, 10 gallons minimum, 15 to 20 recommended, and you can always go bigger. And it's better to go bigger in a tank than smaller. So that's the first thing with their tank. They need filtration, right? They need to have something that's going to process their waste. A good canister filter, hang-on back filter, or even a sump is the best. And then, of course, lighting. If you're just keeping fish, all you need is just something to make it look like daylight in there. That's all the fish need. They don't need the high-intensity, expensive lights. You just need a light on a timer. This is known as a fish-only with live rock tank. The beauty of clownfish is that you can pair them with a lot of different other species, and so you always need to plan out your tanks before implementing them. And of course, just feed once a day. If you really want to get an anemone, clownfish have a symbiotic relationship with an anemone. They live in them. I recommend getting a bubble tip anemone. They're really cheap. They're pretty hardy. But the reality is that it takes a lot more work to keep both a clownfish and an anemone than just a clownfish. So I really recommend starting with just a clownfish and then maybe adding an anemone way later on once you're tank has been extremely established. You don't have issues like crazy amounts of algae or any pests that you're going to have issues with in the future. So that's my really quick guide on how to take care of clownfish. And I hope that your clownfish is awesome and that you have a really good time in the future and all the success in the world.